Hey, Grass and Gits, just a really quick update for you. So GW dropped this, and I wasn't really planning on doing a video today, but there's a big core rules update that I had to read it. I had to figure out what was new, so I got to bring it to you. So that's what we're going to do today. This is not going to take too long. All right, first off, you can find this all on Warhammer Community. Just go click the little button for downloads, Warhammer 40k, and they have updated a new Pariah Nexus tournament companion, which is largely unchanged. And then there's a few updates to the commentary, which shout out to Games Workshop, guys. By the way, when you highlight things in red for us to know the new changes, we love it. That's awesome. Keep on doing it. Y'all are rock stars. All right, so let's talk about the pivot change. I have notoriously hated the pivot changes. I think they've been disastrously written. I still don't like them. However, I can live with them. And I think that now you can make an argument that the quality of life improvement to the pivot rules is worth it. Whereas previously, I thought it just allowed for too much abuse. Now, since they've updated the rules, I think that it is a fine rule and I can accept it. And I am no longer angry crump in wargaming. All right, so this is the pivot change. Basically, they gave us this nifty little chart here. And it says that models that are not on a round base, excluding monsters and vehicles, now have a pivot value of 1. So this will be things like infantry or like cavalry, right? So if you are running blood crushers, rough riders, anything like that, seekers of Slanesh, these types of things, now they only have a pivot value of 1. Death Gatas. Well, and that's a really big deal because paying 2 inches on those models was pretty bad feeling. All right, then now monsters and vehicle models that are not on a round base, this is now 2 inches of rotation, same as it previously was. So that one's no change. Then they added a new category in, which thank goodness they did, because this is still a little broken, but it's like way less broken now. Vehicle models on a round base that is wider than 32 millimeters with a flying stem or hover stand. Effectively, what this means is all Eldar and Dark Eldar vehicles, most all Tau vehicles, because holy crap, was that oppressive just watching how much free movement all those races would get. Now they have a pivot value of 2 inches, which is great. All aircraft models, they say pivot value 0, but they also, in parentheses down below, they tell you to check the aircraft rules because aircrafts have very specific pivot rules that they have to follow as well. And then all other types of models are 0, which is a nice little catch-all. So if you don't fall into any of those categories, you don't pay pivot costs. I like it. This is a good change. This is a good update. It makes the pivot rules work. So cheers to you, GW. I previously hated it. Now I'm just like, eh. Let's go to moving. There was one small little change to moving. So in the Pariah Nexus update, when they did all the massive rules updates, they made it so that if your base fits wholly between 2 ruins or 2 pieces of terrain, then you don't have to worry about rotations. You can just move straight forward. Your wings can't stop you from going through a pathway, basically. Well, they just gave a little update here saying that while a model, excluding vehicle models that do not have the walker keyword, is moving in a straight line. So basically, if you're a vehicle, you don't get this benefit, and you are going to have to like wiggle your way through. If you don't fit, you just don't fit. So it's really now this special rule only applies to walkers or monsters. Okay, next change. This change is awesome. I think it's not necessarily super impactful, but it's just really good for consistency in the rules. So I think GW noticed that they're just a little too inconsistent with the way that they're writing rules. And then one was just a nice little balance thing. So first off, no more zone thrope loophole. So if you don't know the zone thrope loophole, let me explain it real quick. Basically, what people were doing with the new update is they were running the neurothrope with zone thropes. And since the neurothrope has the monster keyword, the entire unit gains the monster keyword, meaning the entire unit had access to the big guns never tire special rule. However, since zone thropes don't have the monster keyword, just the unit does, they didn't have to suffer the penalty for big guns never tire. So they would get the benefit of being able to shoot in melee, but they wouldn't suffer from the -1 to hit, which was a little annoying. I don't necessarily think it was like crushing competition or it was really making too many issues, but that little inconsistency in the way the rules worked was a bit of a problem. So Games Workshop went ahead and updated it to make it so it does work. So now they says each time a monster or vehicle unit makes a ranged attack, if that unit, where previously it said model, was within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units when it selected its targets, unless it's with a pistol, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. So now the zone thropes will be at -1 to hit when they're utilizing the big guns never tire keyword that they get from having the neurothrope attached to the unit. This makes a lot more sense. It's just a lot cleaner, and it's just going to make sure that there's not like little arguments about rules. So good on GW, good fix. And then nextly, this is another nerf that was very directly targeted towards T-Suns, which I don't really get it, GW. Just nerf T-Suns. Like, T-Suns are too good. Just nerf them. It's fine. So basically, now you can no longer have indirect fire with torrent weapons. Sorry, Grey Knights. You don't get to use your fun rule because the magic boys from T-Suns are too darn powerful, and that Infernal Master is a bonkers unit. So, GW, if you hate T-Suns, just nerf T-Suns. You don't need to nerf core rules that nerf other armies in addition to only barely impacting the T-Suns. So, there it is. That being said, I hate indirect fire in general, so any more constraints on indirect fire, I'm happy with. But that's a very biased opinion, to be fair. All right, next one. This one's actually really cool. This is a very good rules cleanup by GW because this is one that people were playing wrong all the time, and now you're not going to be playing it wrong. So GW, well done. So this means that Zodgrod lives. Zodgrod Wartsnaga gets to do his thing. So now scouts will work as intended. A lot of people would say, "Oh, this is what GW intended," but it's not the way the rules worked. So you can never tell me what GW intends because GW writes what they mean, and sometimes it's errors, sometimes they fix it, sometimes it's intended for it to work the way that it's written. So GW has fixed the wording on scouts. Previously, what happened with scouts is that you could only move a normal move of up to a normal move. So if you had scouts 9, but your movement profile was 6, you could still only scout 6. You couldn't scout 9. So they've updated it to meaning that you can scout up to X, which means if you have a movement of 6 and a scout move of 9, like say Zodgrod Wartsnaga has, you can now move 9. In addition to that, they updated the way that scouts interacts with dedicated transports. Previously, if your unit gained scout from an enhancement or a stratagem or a leader, then you could not use scout when you were embarked in a transport or in a dedicated transport. The reason for this is that units can never be affected by any rules or abilities when they are embarked in a transport. That is a very weird and clear-cut rule that Games Workshop has. Meaning if you're a leader, gives your unit the scout keyword, and you're in a transport, you cannot scout because you can't be affected by that ability. So Games Workshop has carved out an exception here, and I'll read it to you. So dedicated transport models can make use of any Scout's X ability listed in their abilities or a Scout's X ability that a unit that starts the battle embarked with that dedicated model has, provided only models with this ability are embarked within the dedicated transport model, regardless of how that embarked unit gained this ability, i.e. listed in their abilities, conferred by enhancement, or by an attached character. So it is now works that if your character or your enhancement gives the unit scouts, you can make use of scouts while you're in dedicated transports. People say that this is people have already mentioned to me that they think that this is an unnecessary update. You're completely wrong. You weren't reading the rules correctly. This is a very necessary update, and it means that it actually works the way it was intended to work, which is good. Great job, GW. Good one. Then there's just a few little FAQs they put in. So transports FAQ, none of this actually changes anything. It just adds a little FAQ so that people won't make dumb arguments anymore. So basically, the first one is, if a transport is arriving from strat reserves, must be set up wholly within 6 inches of a battlefield edge. Does this also apply to units that disembark from that transport in the same turn? So now this one actually is a little bit of a surprise, but no, such units disembark normally, provided they are set up more than 9 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. So you can actually disembark further than 6 inches with the models inside a transport as long as you're more than 9 inches away from enemy units. That's actually a good FAQ because there was a lot of argument about that one. Then the next one, when a transport with multiple units embarked is destroyed, do all of those units have to disembark before rolling for mortal wounds? Yes, this has always been the case. You've always had to disembark before you roll for mortal wounds. People just play it wrong. So they have very clearly stated in the FAQ, don't read it wrong. This is what we mean. You have to put your models down and then roll for mortal wounds. The reason for this is that if you put your models in a certain position and you go, oh crap, I'm going to have to kill my heavy weapon because I took too many mortal wounds and I wasn't accounting for positioning, you screwed up. So that's something that you're going to have to be aware of. So I highly recommend when you are placing your models from a emergency disembarkment, make sure you do it in such a way that you're not going to have to kill your heavy weapons or your special weapons, things like that, sergeants, etc. And then when a transport with multiple embarked units is destroyed, who decides the order in which those units disembark? That transport's controller player decides. Perfect. When using a transport's rule that allows a unit to be split before the battle, Adeptus Sororitas Immolators, Drukhari Venoms, etc., what is the points value of half of that split unit for the purposes of placing it into strategic reserves? Have the points value of the original unit for purposes of the 25% strategic. So what this means is you have a 500 point limit of models that can go into strategic reserves. So if you have a unit of I don't know what the actual points cost is, but say a unit of Battle Sisters costs 100 points. Just bear with me. That might be a little bit wrong. Let's just say it does, though. Then if you have 50, if you cut it in half, because 5 of them are going in an immolator and then 5 of them are going in strat reserve, it's 50 points that go in strat reserve. It's logical. It makes perfect sense. And then lastly, can the fire Overwatch stratagem be used to shoot at a unit that just disembarked from a transport? Yes, always has been. This includes units that just disembarked from a transport that arrived from reserves in the same phase. This is correct. That's the way it's always should have been played, but good on GW for making sure it's clear, because people were arguing about this one. And then lastly, there's one other little FAQ area that they put in, which was a little weird, and I'm not really sure I actually understand it. So I'm not going to say cleared up misunderstandings. I'm going to say misunderstandings. Basically, reserves. Are the limits placed on reserves and strategic reserves separate? Answer. Strategic reserves units are also reserve units. As such, any restrictions placed on reserves by a mission pact, chapter approved rules, also apply to strategic reserves. Okay, that I don't think anyone questioned that, and if you did, you were a jerk. And then, do units in reserves meet the requirements for being eligible to shoot? This is weird to me, because they answer, if you're in reserves, are you eligible to shoot? But you're in reserves, and you're not on the table. And so it's saying, yes, units in reserves are eligible to shoot. I don't understand this, because it also goes on to clarify, unless you have at least one model in the unit that has eligible targets for one or more of its ranged units, you can't select them to shoot. So I don't understand this, why that's there. It's really confusing for me. Perhaps I'm missing something. If I am, please type it down in the comments down below. Anyway, guys, this was a Cores rule update that was very unexpectedly dropped. I'm a little sad that it wasn't dropped like 2 weeks earlier, because then I would have to deal with T-Sun's using indirect with that stupid Infernal Master at the WTC. But alas, we now have it in the game. So when we come back from the WTC, we'll have some new fancy rules to get to play with. So I love it. I'm really excited. Guys, next week, I will have a few videos for you, but they will be a little bit reduced because I will be playing in both the War Master and the WTC. You'll be able to catch me on stream, at least on one of the streams, I assume. Hopefully I can get on Joe's stream. He's my favorite streamer over at War Games Live. Just a shout out. I'm not saying I am on that stream, but hopefully I can make it on there. I'm looking to crush the enemies. I will be live streaming one very interesting thing that a lot of you might enjoy. I will be having a live action jiu-jitsu match with one of our dear members of the Discord who has challenged me to a jiu-jitsu match. So there will be some Warhammer jiu-jitsu going on a live stream next week. I'm certain my wife will be in the corner calling me an idiot while I am wrestling another fat sweaty man, and we will probably be a little inebriated. Anyway, you have that to look forward to. I am looking forward to your horrible, disparaging comments during that video and lots of other things like that. So until next time, happy crumping. I think I will be back tomorrow with a nice little strategy video for you. And then next week is the big tournament. So we'll see how it goes. Crump on. Bye-bye.